Good morning, everybody. This is your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we're all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. Today we're in Rhode Island, the Arcadia with an R, not Acadia, land management area. That's Breakheart Pond behind me. We're going on Breakheart Trail here, and just today we're going to be going over ways that we can learn to modulate, research evidence-based methods and techniques to modulate the default mode network, which, if you remember yesterday when we described its function, is involved in many things, including rumination, which is common in depression, social processing disorders, even schizophrenia, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's display altered or disrupted default mode network processing. And again, just to refresh our minds, most everybody has heard of a neuron. Those are the individual cell bodies in the brain. We divide the brain up into multiple areas, cortices. The way that human behavior and all animal behavior works is these regions create networks that communicate with each other. We can think of a disrupted default mode network as similar to a computer program that's got a bug in it. Something jammed up the code, and now your resting state network, that is another term for the default mode network, because it's the patterns our brain goes into whenever we're at rest, can lead to depression, excessive rumination, thinking over and over about regretful, shameful, or fear-based activities. Now, I don't need to go over everything. You can watch the video from yesterday if you'd like to refresh yourselves on what exactly the default mode network does, but for this video's purpose, just remember that when it gets disrupted, it can lead to mental health issues, and it's the set of neural patterns that our brain goes into when we are at rest, not focused on any cognitive tasks. So, what can we do if we disrupt ours? Well, there are a ton and more are coming out each year of techniques, including acupuncture, antidepressant medications, deep brain stimulation, meditation, physical activity, exercise, psychedelics, psychotherapy, sleep deprivation, and then even modulating your sleep and rest schedule. A lot of different things can impact the default mode network. Now, we do need to be careful, because just because these things impact the default mode network does not necessarily mean that they are beneficial for us, right? Now, we'll start off with acupuncture. So, acupuncture is actually a core tenet or a core portion of traditional Chinese medicine. In the West, it's considered a type of alternative medicine, and there's definitely a lot of hearsay about whether or not it actually produces any benefits, but early acupuncture beliefs held that we are imbued with the universal life force called qi, or qi. And although research hasn't borne much evidence for the more mystical aspects of this practice, there have been some interesting results when it comes to modulating the default mode network. Basically, a practitioner, a trained expert, quote unquote, this is what somebody, I've never done acupuncture, but somebody supposedly is able to trace your meridians and then place needles into the body in specific spots to relieve energetic tension. Now, again, the more mystical aspects of this are hard to research, but there has been real placebo double-blind studies showing that it does actually modulate default mode network expression. It has also been suggested that it stimulates the release of endorphins and adenosine by activating particular pain receptors in the body, which, like, intuitively that makes sense, at least. Teddy Akiki's research team released a report clarifying the default mode network's role in PTSD and the impact of antidepressant treatments. So, on to antidepressants. Personally, I am non-pharmaceutical when it comes to treating depression typically, but his team concluded, and quoting, PTSD may be characterized by a weakly connected and hypoactive default mode network and central executive network, which is another one of those neural networks. The central executive is the one that you use when you're actually focused on a task. And they are putatively disabled by an overactive and hyperconnected salience network, which is the thing that draws our attention. And again, some of this is like research language. So basically what they're saying is when you become easily startled, stuff grabs your attention and makes it hard for you to pay attention to other stuff. And this can lead to disruptions with your default mode network. PTSD can make you hypersensitive to those things. And to a lesser extent, any trauma can. Now, this is about PTSD in particular, but the findings likely apply to any sort of traumatic experience. When traumatized, the brain's underlying network architecture changes, implicating the amygdala, medial prefrontal cortex, and hippocampus. Now, just so you guys know, the amygdala is the part of the brain, sometimes it's described as looking kind of like an almond, but it's where we process fear, and trauma may sensitize it, making it where less extreme stuff creates a more extreme response, which makes it overactive, heightened arousal, and can lead to exaggerated fear response. The prefrontal cortex is the newest part of the human brain, and it's where we make rational decisions. In my mind, it's where, if you've seen any of my Aristotle's videos talking about the anima, where he breaks down the tripartite soul, the rational aspect of the soul, if it resided anywhere in the human brain, it resides in the prefrontal cortex. It also does what researchers call top-down inhibition. Basically, it's when we can check our emotional state and then decide, oh, do I or do I not want to do this particular thing, even though I'm emotional. A trauma can weaken that. Trauma weakens our ability to inhibit fear rationally, and a dysregulated hippocampus fails to dispel these issues. Hippocampus is where we store our memories. So normally you could draw up, or in ideal circumstances, your hippocampus could draw up memories of you like overcoming a challenge or getting through something in like a positive story. But if you went through something really traumatic, there may not be anything in there positive for you to draw on, right? All of this can lead to dysregulations in your default mode network. And again, to clarify, there were two other networks we mentioned in that section. The default mode network, again, that's the one that's active when we're at rest. It handles self-referential thoughts, and disruption can lead to intrusive thoughts and dissociation. The central executive network, that involves more like the prefrontal cortices, is where we handle our goal-directed behaviors, and it also processes cognitive and emotional control. And finally, salience network, which handles the detection of salient internal and external stimuli, which is just like, should we pay attention to something or not? That's in layman terms. Rhode Island's been pretty cool though. SSRI medications did demonstrate a decrease in network disruption in people that were traumatized by stuff. I'm not a medical doctor, and personally I prefer non-pharmaceutical and natural methods like physical exercise, which we're going into here shortly. Deep brain stimulation is a different one as well. So it's a neurosurgical procedure involving the placement of a neurostimulator, which is essentially an electrode that transmits electric signals to specific targets in the brain. It's actually been FDA approved since 1997, and despite us lacking a complete scientific understanding of the procedure, it is a reliable way to directly influence the brain. So basically, if you've got treatment-resistant PTSD, depression, it might help to have electrodes placed into your brain. Again, I'm smart enough to read the research papers and translate them into everyday speak, but I am no medical doctor. So before signing up for anything, consult with a professional. However, treatment-resistant mental health disorders often respond well to deep brain stimulation, and long-term alterations to resting state networks have been observed after using this procedure. So we do have some evidence showing that it helps to restore dysregulated default mode networks. Since dysregulated resting states are common in neuropsychiatric disorders, this may be beneficial. Finally, this right here is one that I've been excited to talk about. Meditation. Now, I could create an entire video series on all the research, and I may very well, on that's come out in the last 20 years over meditation and mindfulness research, but here's a very brief overview. In short, becoming a regular meditator can help you restore your dysregulated default mode network, helping to alleviate a wide variety of modern psychiatric issues. Now, the earliest known records of meditation appear in the Upanishads, and this contemplative practice has played a prominent role in Buddhism and Hinduism since their inception. Its introduction to the West precipitated a slew of scientific discoveries supporting its benefits, which include reductions in stress, anxiety, depression, and pain, as well as enhancements in peace, perception, self-concept, and well-being. There's even research that's shown increased empathy, compassion, and prosocial behaviors in regular meditators. Fox et al. Was a research team, performed an investigation in 2014 and discovered several brain regions with clear structural differences between meditators and non-meditators. So if you practice meditation a lot, it actually changes the density of the gray matter in your brain in a way that is instantly recognizable to someone who is trained to recognize this. Now, thickening of the prefrontal cortices might augment metacognitive awareness, helping us to deal with things like intrusive thoughts and anything where we're feeling bad about ourselves, basically. The somatomotor cortex, whenever it's got more gray matter, it may help us regulate our pain perception, and there is research showing that regular meditators have better pain perceptions, meaning stuff it doesn't hurt them as much, literally, emotionally, or physically. It's kind of crazy. The insula helps with interoceptive awareness, which is just like, how are we postured? Are we standing with our back straight? Anterior cingulate cortex, self-control, focused problem solving, adaptive behavioral responses. I mean, honestly, training the mind to sit focused and cultivating peace and tranquility. If you ask Aristotle, you are what you do. So you become a peaceful, tranquil, self-controlled person, right? The cognitive benefits of meditation require consistent practice over 3 stages, and this is from one of the research papers, the Fox et al. One. The first stage is where we have to overcome our habitual ways of internally reacting to our own emotions, eliciting higher prefrontal cortical activation. So when someone first begins meditating, if we put them in an fMRI machine, we see more prefrontal cortex activation, which just means that they're actively having to try to control their mind. The second stage is where we start to face the challenge of a wandering mind and master it. And then the third stage is where expert meditators rely less on conscious prefrontal control and have an automatic accepting stance. And further, at the end of this guy's research paper, the same meta-analysis also examined gray matter density over time in both meditators and non-meditators, which is a key aging indicator. Those who meditated most frequently displayed the lowest reductions in their gray matter density. So, meditating may actually help be a very effective anti-aging treatment for the brain. Physical exercise and activity. And then, so physical activity and aerobic exercise already have robust support for their uplifting impact on mood, cognition, and working memory. Even a short walk after work can help to boost your metabolism, improve cardiovascular function, and combat age-related cognitive decline. Incidentally, Carhart-Harris's research team found notable differences in the default mode network of experts when studying the impact of exercise. So, learning or mastering a physical skill or sport may promote positive self-image, motor skills, coordination, flexibility, and self-esteem. If you've ever watched Joe Rogan at all, he's got a clip where he talks about he always felt like he was a loser until he mastered jiu-jitsu, and he realized in the ring that he wasn't. So I'm no expert on a skateboard. In fact, my foot still hurts because I messed up on a skateboard like 2 days ago. But anything from guitar to skateboarding, those are the 2 things I know the most about. But any physical skill, and guitar is physical, you are using your fingers, where you can notice that you're progressing, definitely does something for your mind. Learning, and Aristotle talks about mastery. Now, the next one is psychedelic therapies. Now, this could be a topic of its own as well, and there is a lot of exciting research being done on this field, but I am no expert, so I'll keep it very short. After thousands of years of shamanic use, scientists finally uncovered the mechanism of operation that powers most psychedelics like psilocybin mushrooms. So, for thousands of years, the Mayan Indians in South America, the Egyptian lotus cults, the Greek Kaikion rituals, the Hindi Soma rituals, the Zapotec peyote rituals, Chickasaw fungi rituals, all of the compounds that these native cultures used and the ones that are being used in clinical studies today activate the 5-HT2A receptors, which is a particular variant of the brain's serotonin receptor. This serotonin subreceptor influences cognition, and altering it can shut down the ego, as well as the default mode network entirely. Research from Johns Hopkins and the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychiatric Specialists has shown promising results when using these compounds in controlled clinical settings to treat conditions that are difficult to treat via traditional methods, such as addiction, PTSD, and OCD. Now, that's all I'm going to say on this topic for now, but if you are interested in learning more, you can check out Dr. Andrew Huberman's YouTube channel. He's a professor from either Yale or Harvard, but he's got like a 2-hour talk at like the highest level of professional expertise in the industry about it on there. And then we've got 2 more before I'm done for today. Psychotherapy, and this one's short. Again, psychotherapy, we could have a whole series of videos on just this, but studies have demonstrated repairs to the default mode network of PTSD patients who respond to psychotherapy. So it seems that in people who respond to psychotherapy, it may be helping them by restoring or healing their default mode networks. And then sleep deprivation and restoring your natural sleep schedule can also. So if you're sleep deprived, it can disturb your default mode network, and once you catch back up on your sleep and you get a healthier sleep schedule, it can fix it. So looking forward and takeaways, we'll end today's video. We'll go ahead and go over in the future. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about Greece again and usual content schedule, but the next time we talk about the brain, we'll talk about some of the major neurotransmitter systems, and I may go through these individually, but these include like amino acids, glutamate and GABA, the monoamines, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, peptides including oxytocin, acetylcholine, and things like endorphins. What do these things do? How do we control them? And then how we can modulate these to scientifically manifest improved well-being. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. It's one of my longer videos, and I know the stuff is a little denser, but just remember, if you're not feeling your best, it might be because you've disrupted or trauma has disrupted your default mode network, but there are things you can do in order to restore your normal resting states. There are experts on all of these topics, and personally, just getting outside, like I said yesterday, anything that inspires awe is always good for it. So, as you see, I spend a ton of time outdoors, and it has definitely helped me feel really good, especially compared to when I worked retail. Anyways, this is a wandering author here, reminding you that we're all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love y'all.